Thank you, Faye, and hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen with you all now and go through a short PowerPoint. And then after that, as we have on the agenda, we have some time scheduled so we can share questions and suggestions with each other. So things are really hard right now for a lot of us, and I wanted to start off the PowerPoint sharing this, that you're not alone. Particularly for individuals with autism, a lot of research has shown that times of uncertainty can increase anxiety and a lot of other behaviors of concerns for individuals on the spectrum, including repetitive behavior, sensory sensitivity, and related concerns like that. And so right now, as family members or as professionals who support our loved ones on the spectrum, it can be really hard to decide what priorities to focus on. And thinking about this, I'm reminded of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which basically suggests that in order for us to accomplish higher order needs like educational goals, self-esteem, self-actualization, we need our basic needs met first. And during times like right now, where we have reduced resources, we have reduced access to people who care and support for us, it's okay to focus in on those core needs that we have, those safety needs and those physiological needs. So we're going to talk about promoting safety and promoting access to some of those core basic needs that we need to focus on now while we have reduced access to supports in our environment. I want to start off by reflecting on the idea that when we think about behavior, any human behavior, whether it's problematic or not, it really is a type of communication. When we're engaging in behavior, we're communicating what it is that we want or need. When we're talking about problem behavior, we're talking about behaviors that are unsafe and potentially interfere with our learning or our relationships. So I'm going to talk about how we figure out why a behavior is happening, and my tips and tricks today are going to focus on how we can prevent problem behavior from occurring, and once it does, how can we decrease or stop that behavior. So when we think about why a behavior or problem behavior is happening, it's helpful to think about the A, B, C's and behavior. What I mean by A is that antecedent, thinking about what is happening right before that behavior of interest. Let's say, for example, a parent is talking on the phone. That is our antecedent right before the behavior of interest occurs, which is throwing a TV remote, let's say, across the room. Right after that, we have the consequence. That's that event or something that happens that is in response to that behavior. In this example, let's say it's being told, don't do that, and being given a book. This is that ABC relationship of behavior. We're seeing what happens immediately before and immediately afterwards. So the reason this is important to bear in mind is because the consequences are what help us engage in more or less of a behavior. When we're thinking about problem behavior, we may engage in it to get something or obtain something or avoid something. And usually there's three different categories of things that we're trying to get or avoid. It can be something tangible like food, items, activities. It can be attention from others, whether it's good attention or bad attention being yelled at, or it can be sensory. So getting something as an experience that just feels good or makes us feel a different way. So thinking about behavior as it ties to COVID-19, all of us or a lot of us are engaging in social distancing right now. And what that means is that there's a lot of extra states that might be making certain behaviors more or less likely to occur. So thinking about if you've been at home for the last couple of days or last couple of weeks, you might be lonely, you might be bored, you're feeling unwell potentially, you're sleep deprived, there's definitely been a change in your routine. You might be anxious or even hungry. And so all of these states can contribute to why behavior is more or less likely to occur. So let's think again about that ABC relationship I just showed. Those states I just shared on the screen, those are what we call setting events. These are events or states that can make behavior more or less likely to occur. So say, for example, Your day's unstructured, you're bored. As a result of that ABC relationship is still going to occur. But as a result of you being bored or your time being unstructured, that behavior of concern is potentially going to be more frequent or more severe. And that's what a lot of us are seeing right now. People we care about who are on the spectrum, or whether you're off the spectrum, you're stuck at home, you're not sure what to do, your time is unstructured, and as a result of that, problem behaviors may be more or less frequent or more or less severe. So reflecting back on those reasons why we engage in problem behavior, let's say that problem behavior is to get something. It can be something like a game, an outing, comfort, attention, even being yelled at can be an attention that's motivating to some people. Behaviors that are being performed that in order to get something might be more likely to happen when the person is bored, they're hungry, or they're lonely. Let's think about behaviors next that are happening to avoid something. Say, for example, you want to avoid doing your homework, you want to avoid a loud noise, crowds, going to a doctor's appointment, anything that's unpleasant or something aversive. These behaviors are more likely to happen when it's too noisy, you've got too much work to do, you're not feeling well, something that you're being told to do is too hard, or you're just uncomfortable. And then finally, what if that problem behavior is happening just because it feels good? It can be something like rubbing your body, jumping up and down, rubbing, or even hitting yourself for some people. These behaviors might be more likely to happen when you're bored, you've got pent up energy that you don't know what to do with, you're in pain, or you're feeling uncomfortable. So there's a lot to bear in mind when thinking about why a behavior is occurring, but it's important to do because this can help you decide what you should do in response to make that behavior less likely to occur in the future. So once you understand what that behavior is doing, what they're communicating, you can not only decrease the likelihood of that problem behavior, but it can also help you work with the individual to figure out how you can make positive behavior more likely to occur. So this is why it's really important when you're thinking about that problem behavior you're seeing at home right now, to think through why is this occurring and what can the person do differently to get the same result. So how do you figure it out? Well, remember that ABC relationship. If you Google ABCs of behavior, there's a lot of resources online that can help you collect some data or collect some information, or just think through why that behavior might be happening. There are also some rating scales that are available freely online. The links are on the screen, so feel free to take a screenshot or take a photo. If you're on your phone right now, as Faye mentioned, we will be posting this PowerPoint on Facebook after today's event, so you can come back and look at these links. But these are scales that are pretty easy to complete, and they include instructions on how to score them, so you can figure out, okay, whether the behavior is more likely to be due to the fact that they want something or they want to get away from something. And it's also important during these times, if you've got questions about behavior, to stay connected with with the individual support teams, educational teams, work teams, those teams that typically support them. Try to stay connected with them as much as you can via phone or email, because they oftentimes might have some good ideas as well to help you figure out how to support the individual. So the key to reducing or managing problem behavior at home is preventing it. Think about what are the situations in which this behavior is most likely to occur, and how can I reduce the likelihood that it's going to occur in the future. So for many of us, we're facing new routines right now, or a lack of routine. We're not going to work, we're not going to school. There's a lot that's changed. We can't go to the park or the movies or places we usually went on the weekend. So it can be hard to figure out where to start with this. We do have a whole webinar next week, next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, that is scheduled to building new routines. So I'm not going to talk about this too much today, but just over the next week, to get ready for that webinar, you can think about starting with identifying what the most challenging part of the day is for you or the person you're supporting right now. And that might be the place to start in figuring out how to create that new routine. You want to keep it simple. Here's some examples of some simple ways you can do that. And again, we'll elaborate on these tips more during our next call next week. Also be aware that the person you're supporting is probably experiencing some sensory changes right now. Social distancing may lead to changes in sensory input we're used to. For example, visual input from exercising outside, going for walks, going to PE class or the gym. We might be experiencing differences in auditory stimulation, especially if your home is quiet or loud compared to what they're used to. Temperature, pressure. So think through what those usual sensations are that the person has been exposed to during the day and try to find some replacements for that. One thing that comes to mind for me is a lot of individuals on the spectrum that I know that are particularly children like swings or swing sets. And not having access to that swing set during recess can be particularly upsetting for some folks. So one thing that you may have at home that could help mitigate that is a rocking recliner, a rocking chair, a bouncy ball, or something else that can help the individual get that same sensation during that day. You want to also try and prioritize building in positive experiences, which may seem like a tall order right now. But since we know that social distancing means that there's going to be less enjoyment during the day, but we need to try and remember what the individual's preferences are and try and focus on still making those available while at home. You can try and plan to incorporate several preferred activities or fun activities during the day while the person is calm, and reserve other activities or items or just forms of attention for when the person is doing something positive and coping successfully during trickier times. That's when you can deliver that positive experience or item as a reward. The link on the screen here has 51 ideas for rewards you can use at home that are free, because I know a lot of us can't order things off of Amazon or go to the store right now to get things that we might ordinarily use. So I recommend checking that list out. There's some ideas on there that are more appropriate for children, but there's also a lot of ideas on there that would be appropriate for adults as well. Finally, it's really important to try and keep communication clear. There's a lot of unknowns for a lot of us right now, especially for individuals on the spectrum who don't know why they're not going to school. They don't know why they can't go to work anymore. So you want to try and mitigate that by providing clear communication yourself. Speak slowly, give one instruction at a time, give the individual extra time to respond because they might be thinking through a lot right now, and help the individual communicate abstract concepts like the fact that they might be uncomfortable or in pain. Whenever I think about communicating with an individual with autism, I really like showing this graphic because it does a nice example showing how if you say something simple to someone like, hello, how are you, and wave, that might seem simple to you and I, but to someone on the spectrum, that can be very complicated. For example, the person's trying to figure out what your body language means, what you're communicating, why you're communicating to me now, how should I respond, and on and on and on. So it's important to try and use clear communication during this time. So problem behavior is happening. Now what do you do? So during social distancing, I myself have been doing a lot of puzzles and playing Scrabble and word searches. So I know that oftentimes when people are responding to challenging behavior, we have the tendency to freeze, or we have the tendency to try and go hide. So here's an acronym that I've developed for you all, thanks to some of the word searches that I've been working on the last couple of days. So when problem behavior is happening at home, I want you to try and remember to keep your spirit high. What does that mean? So start off, you want to think about safety. Try to get things and people out of the way that are likely to be harmed or damaged if this problem behavior involves lashing out at anything or anyone. Give the individual space to calm down. make sure they're safe, and make sure you are safe. What that means is making sure you take a protective stance. So stand with your dominant shoulder and dominant foot facing away from the person, your other shoulder and foot facing towards them. This means that your soft and tissuey parts of your body aren't directly facing the person, and you can step away, step backwards quickly while maintaining your balance. This is going to be a lot safer for you if the person is frustrated and potentially lashing out at you than if you're facing them head on. The P stands for patient. So you want to model calm behavior you want to see and avoid discussing that bad behavior with others. So if someone is having a temper tantrum, try to avoid calling to your spouse and saying, hey, Johnny's flipping out again. Instead, avoid discussing it. Say, hey, can you come help me for a minute? Or try to develop a code with your family members for times when you might need some assistance. Don't talk about the bad behavior in front of the person you're supporting, because that could give it some extra attention that might make it more likely to happen in the future. I stands for ignore. So that means you want to limit the attention you're giving the negative behavior. Avoid commenting on it, making eye contact with the person while they're doing something unsafe, sighing, touching them, comforting them, or frowning. Instead, you want to distract yourself. The reason there's a picture of the ceiling on the screen is that oftentimes I'll suggest that people stare at the floor or stare at the ceiling and do something to distract yourself, like count the ceiling tiles or count the floor tiles. You can also fiddle with something in your pocket or focus on deep breathing and calm breathing. That way you're actually doing something yourself instead of just trying to do nothing and ignore the person. Redirect the person's attention. So if they're engaging in a problematic behavior, you want to try and redirect their attention to something neutral and something they can do instead. If they're agitated because they can't go to the school because there's a bus that's outside that they're not allowed to get onto, redirect them to something that's neutral, not highly preferred, but that they can focus on instead. For example, washing your hands after you come home from the grocery store instead of hitting your head, or playing with a fidget toy instead of not listening, or instead of throwing your pen across the room, or playing with a fidget toy. These are all neutral activities that someone can do instead of engaging in problem behavior. You want to identify when the person's calming down before returning those desired items or objects, or even that attention. Because if you give it to them any sooner, that risks rewarding that problematic behavior. So wait or identify once they're calming. Once they start to calm down, then it's okay to start returning things to how they were before the problem behavior started. That can help keep everybody safe and show the person you're working with that that behavior is not going to get them what they want. And then lastly, you want to teach another appropriate alternative behavior that gets at the same goal. So for example, if I throw my notebook across the room because I want a break from the schoolwork you're trying to do with me tomorrow morning, wait till I'm calm and then teach me to ask for a break. Or if someone throws the remote at the TV because it's been turned off, wait till they're calm and then prompt them to sign they want the TV back on. When they're doing something that's an appropriate way to request for that behavior instead of the problem behavior, that's when it's okay to reward. If you show them that that appropriate behavior gets them what they want, then that's going to show them that in the future, doing that appropriate behavior is going to be more likely to get them what they want rather than the problem behavior. And finally, try to take one day at a time right now. During these times where you have reduced access to supports, maybe therapies, care teams, school, jobs, etc., it's okay to have lower expectations of yourselves, have lower expectations of your child, and give yourselves time to adjust. We're all going to try and prioritize keeping each other safe and getting those basic needs met until we can return to our usual routines. Here are some resources on the screen. The link UVA Autism Drive has a resource directory on it if you click on the resources tab, We're going to be uploading some COVID-19 specific resources that our team has been finding over the last 2 weeks. So you can find an announcement for that on the homepage, and that's going to be uploaded either today or tomorrow. There's also the AFEM COVID-19 toolkit that's been released that has some nice information on there. This is from the University of North Carolina. And then the same group also has some free modules online available to teach community members about behavior management strategies. That's also a really nice resource.